Hello, my name is Mark. I'm a design engineer here at Company23, and today I will be walking you through a step-by-step how to rebuild an AVCS intake cam gear. If you're seeing this video, it means we've previously launched our entire new category of AVCS cam gear rebuild tools. So today we're going to put them to use. We're going to rebuild this cam gear right in front of me. So a couple things we're going to need before we get started. We have the Company23 AVCS socket, part number 510. We have the Company23 AVCS cam gear alignment tool and work stand. This comes in the intake cam gear rebuild kit. We also have new AVCS cam gear O-rings that we manufacture. So just to give you an idea and touch on this really quickly, this is an automotive grade polymer that we re-engineered and we manufacture. This is an old one. So this is actually out of my boss Chad's 2004 STI with, I don't even know how many miles are on it. But previously what people did when they disassembled cam gears is two things. They reuse these seals and say a little prayer that they don't leak, but you can see how hard that is and how flattened this is. So this is actually very well crushed, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but we're not gonna use that because we want to make sure our new build doesn't leak. So we have seals available on our website. They are sold separately. The other thing people have done in the past is they've used other methods of aligning the cam gear. Once we get this apart, I'll show you exactly what our alignment tool does, why it's important, and why you need to make sure you buy the correct tools to do the job. So a couple other things we're gonna need before we get started. We have assembly lube. I prefer royal purple. This stuff is still somewhat thin, but pretty sticky, which helps the cam gear go together. We have a can of brake cleaner for cleaning all the innards. And then we have a roll of preferably lint-free paper towels. We're also gonna need a ratchet. I prefer one with an extension and a torque wrench. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our AVCS cam gear work stand. One other thing I highly recommend before you start trying to do this job is a bench mounted vise. This is designed to work in conjunction with a bench mount vise. It makes it a lot easier for holding the cam gears, loosening the bolts, torquing the bolts, as well as you'll need it for reassembling the exhaust cam gear. This is a necessity. So that being said, we're gonna jump over to the vise, get started. I'm just gonna put it in the vise. Doesn't need to be insanely tight. We wanna make sure that's snug and not gonna go anywhere. Then we're gonna grab our intake cam gear, and you can see the teeth on here correspond to the teeth on the actual gear. You put that on, find its home. Now the gear is locked in. We can properly loosen all the fasteners on the backside. So let me grab that socket. You'll also notice that on the backside of the cam gear, there's two different fasteners. There's these ones that have a flange head on them, and then there's smaller ones that don't. They take the same socket, but the ones with the flange heads will be much tighter. So it's important that when you remove these bolts or when you install these bolts, you always do it in a crisscross applesauce pattern. So I like to start with the big ones, and we'll talk about it in reassembly, but these big ones can be pretty tight. So you wanna make sure you're holding the cam gear down, hold the tool down, loosen them up. All right, now that I got them cracked loose, get rid of my ratchet, I'll just spin them all the rest of the way out. Also, it's very critical that at no point do you use an impact on this. You'll break sockets, you'll break gears. I love ugga-duggas as much as the next mechanic. Not for this job. It's not crazy fragile, but I'd call it delicate. So put the impacts down, take the extra few minutes, use your hands. Okay, now we have all the fasteners out. We can set those aside. Also take note when you take this apart, it only goes together one way, but there is an alignment pin for the actual gear to the rotor housing right there. So we can pull this gear off. Take a look at that, we'll set it aside. Okay, so now we've exposed the actual mechanical workings of the gear itself. So this is the guts, this is where everything works. So as you can see, there's some oil on the outside. I like to clean as I go. It's never a bad idea to just make sure these gears stay clean and you're getting any foreign debris or contaminant out of the system. So let me get the gear off. We can pull the rotor off. Now, this gear has actually been apart before, so disclaimer, I've been tinkering with this specific one. There is quite a bit of schmutz in there. Like, we'll throw some pictures up on the screen now of my boss's 04 gear that I rebuilt for him in testing. That, fun fact, the gear that we're showing on the screen right now didn't spin a bearing. It didn't break a ringland. It actually lost its turbine wheel in the turbo, and that was enough to send metal not only through the engine, but through the cam gear. So here's a before, here's an after picture. Yeah, they come out nice. So now that we've got this off, clean this up. Also, it's a great idea when you take these apart, just inspect them for any crazy gouges, bad things that might limit stuff. I don't even know how many of these gears apart. Every single one of them, including the ones that Smedia sent me with metallic paste in them, all of them are reusable without issue. I've yet to see one that had a crazy damage to it or anything, and they just need to be cleaned. So the next thing we can do is pull out our old seal. Sometimes a flathead screwdriver will be good, but again, you can see this thing has been through its service life. It is completely squashed. It's hard. It may seal putting it back together. It may not. I don't like to chance my build, so I wouldn't reuse this seal. And again, we're just gonna constantly, continually wipe stuff up as we go. Now, before we go any further, there's some small parts in here. So if you look here, you can see that each one of these is a small plastic box. Underneath that is a rotor seal. Different than a Mazda rotary, but kind of the same. There's a little spring that pushes up on that, seals that rotor. So when you actually are advancing or retracting your AVCS timing, you're moving this rotor within the housing. And these little white boxes are what seal the cavities from the oil passing through. So like say you want to advance your cam timing, oil comes through here, undoes the lock pin, which I'm cheating, and then your rotor actually moves over, and then to go back, now it's locked. Fun fact, the more you know. So now, I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna grab a clean paper towel. This is really the critical step of intake cam gear disassembly. This is when all the small bits and bobs come out. So you wanna make sure you do this over a clean paper towel, not over a storm drain, because you're gonna have a bad day. So we have all the seals, we have all the blocks in here. I'm just gonna come above my paper towel, just gonna push that out. Give it a little shake, make sure all the bits pull out. So next thing we're gonna do is pile up all of the rotor seals and make sure that we have them all. And there should be 6 of them. So this is your intake cam gear completely disassembled. So we have the actual gear pulley, we have the rear housing, we have the main housing, and then we have the rotor. So again, this lock pin, that's what actually locks your gear in its neutral state, and then oil pressure is what unlocks this and then cycles your gear based off whatever the ECU needs. So these are pretty cool little things. These are the small bits that you want to make sure you don't lose. So these are the actual rotor seals, and these are the springs that seal them. They push against them on the housing, scrape back and forth, and make sure the oil is doing what the oil needs to be doing. So now we have it all disassembled. We have the fun part where we can clean. So every single piece of this needs to be cleaned within an inch of its life. So you can see in here we have some black schmutz, a little bit of metal. It's not great. So you want to make sure that, especially in a fresh build, you just got a new oil pump, you just got new main bearings, you got rod bearings, you got new pistons, everything's new, right? Don't throw away your cam gears. Make sure you clean them and rebuild them. You can save hundreds of dollars. So I recommend cleaning these a few different ways. Parts washer is great with a gentle brush, brake cleaner, compressed air, all of the above. I'm not gonna bore you with the actual cleaning of this. I'm gonna do it off camera. But one thing I will note is that this passageway, or all these passageways on the rotor, they are through holes. So this goes in, comes out a different area. Those are pretty easy to clean with a straw and a brake cleaner can. Like so. The one that's a little bit challenging is the actual lock pin. So this, I highly recommend compressed air. So actually cycle the lock pin and then make sure you're spraying brake cleaner through the hole, have it come out the back, vice versa. Whenever it comes through clean, that means the hole is clean. So I'm gonna jump off camera. We're gonna clean these, come back when they're nice and clean and we can start reassembly. All right, now that we have everything clean to within an inch of its life, it's time to reassemble the cam gear. So what we're gonna do is, first thing, we're gonna take some Royal Purple assembly lube. You can use any assembly lube. I prefer this because it's a little bit thinner, but still pretty sticky. And we just wanna make sure that we coat a lot of the inside of the gear so that when we first go to start the car with the new build, there's lube in here for everything to move around, just same as your camshafts, same as your main bearings. Before the oil pressure builds and gets to these, we wanna make sure everything's got just a little bit of lube. Same thing with our rotor. We're gonna put a little bit on everything. So especially the faces and the back face. All right. Just kind of wipe that around with our fingers. Gloves, highly recommended. So now, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna drop this rotor into the housing, but I'm not gonna let this pin lock into the hole. All right, so before we go to reassemble it, I also wanna make sure I have lube around the OD of this mini bucket, as we call it on the intake gear, because that is a slip fit into the rotor. So once I have that in there, obviously you're gonna get a little messy. It's okay. More lube is better than no lube. And also, fun fact, our work stand is designed to hold both the inner and outer parts of this cam gear so it doesn't fall apart. Now, we are going to reinstall our springs and our rotor seals. I'm just gonna wipe my hands a little bit so I'm not so sticky. That's taking a rotor seal and a bucket. Not a bucket, it's a seal. So this plastic portion is always what's scraping. So this goes against whatever surface is moving, not the other way. You want the spring to be stationary in the groove. I'll show you this more in depth in a minute. But this spring just goes in like that. And that's it. It should kind of click in a little bit. And it goes like that. And then we just fill up the missing spots. So again, the outer surface is what's getting scraped. So I'm just gonna get that started, push that in. And I'm gonna do that 5 more times. Put that in there, make sure it's seated. I'll kind of go crisscross applesauce on these two because the spring tension will kind of center the rotor a little bit. It's also important to know we're not worried about the concentricity alignment of everything yet. So again, scraper side goes towards the movable part or the part that needs to get scraped. So you see how on this outer rotor right here, or the outer housing right here, the rotor is actually gonna be scraping on the outer part. The plastic part goes towards the scraping. So you see right here, the spring is gonna apply pressure to the rotor, and then this white portion is going to be scraping the actual surface that's getting scraped. Get this started, just push it in. So again, I'm not gonna rotate this the whole way because I don't wanna lock it, but you can see the white plastic pieces are what's doing the sealing or the scraping. Okay, make sure those are all pushed down. 2 more to go. So now is the fun part. We're gonna come over here and we're gonna grab our AVCS cam gear alignment tool, which is in its red netting protective coating. If you're not using this tool, leave it in the protective coating. It's very important you do not scratch, ding, or otherwise damage the cylindrical portion of this tool. It's a precision tool. If you ding it, it doesn't work. So now what we're gonna do is the critical part. So in the past, if you were to do this incorrectly, this is why you throw cam coats. So before I do that, I'm actually gonna grab my O-ring, my new Company23 O-ring, available at company23.com. I'm just gonna set it in the groove. Make sure that's good to go. Perfect. So the next thing we're gonna do We removed our Company 23 alignment tool from its protective sheathing. We have our rear housing. And we're gonna apply some more assembly lube to the rear housing. We're also gonna make sure that we have plenty of it on the back side of the rotor to make sure that on our first startup, everything is hunky-dory. So now, we take our Company 23 cam gear alignment tool, a little bit more assembly lube. So now, we're gonna fish this through the back housing of our cam gear. Go easy with this. This fit is incredibly tight. So if it doesn't feel right and it's not going right in, especially with assembly lube on it, don't force it. Something's gonna happen. But this fit is really tight, really tight on purpose. So the next thing we're gonna do is actually put our rear housing onto our cam gear, making note of our alignment pin, and making sure our seal doesn't move. Make sure that's all the way down and that our alignment tool spins. So if this alignment tool spins, you know everything that is falling where it should be. If this binds, especially when you're tightening the bolts, something's wrong. Back it up a step or two, start over again. You should never at any point in your cam gear rebuild have to force anything. So other thing you can note is you can see that the alignment tool is actually butted up against where the camshaft bolts to the cam gear. That means it's all the way bottomed. It's all the way in. It means not only is the rear housing concentric with the alignment tool, so is the rotor. That rotor inside is what we want to make sure is lined up with the rear housing. I'll put this back on my stand. My alignment tool turns nice and freely. Great. Now, we're going to leave the alignment tool in the gear for now. I'm going to wipe off my hands a little bit. Got a little overzealous with the lube. That's okay. More lube, a better thing. Now, our gear only goes on one way. Again, this was the internal rotor of the pulley. And we're just gonna put that on, make sure our pin's lined up. Great. Now, you can grab our hardware. We have two different kinds of bolts. We got the flangey ones, the non-flangey ones. They only go one way. They do have different threads. We can just get those started. If you ugga-dugga these, it will move, you will lose your alignment, and it won't work. So don't do that. Just gonna get these all started. Also, to all my impact people out there, don't run these in, don't snug them down with alignment, don't snug them in with impact either. I know tons of people that do those with like cam gear, not cam gear bolts, but camshaft bolts where you run it all the way in until it's flush and then you tighten it. Don't do that, okay? We wanna make sure the alignment of the rotor and the rear cover stay perfect. If you run this thing in with an impact and seat it, it'll try to do this, your tool will be stuck. It's not a good deal. Ask me how I know. Everything that you think you might do with these tools, I did in testing. This is the best way to do it. If you do this, you save a bunch of money, reuse your cam gears. So I use my extension and our Company 23 AVCS socket as a nut driver. I'll just run these in. I won't even seat any of them. I'll just get them close. Now, they're all pretty close. Now, it's imperative that we do the crisscross applesauce pattern when you tighten these, again, for the same reasons that I stressed beforehand. If you tighten one bolt down to torque it, you will knock the concentricity off or the alignment of the two halves of the cam gear just a little bit. You get some binding, it's not fun. So we're just gonna barely snug these down one by one, just so these are like seated. So those are about as tight as I can go with my fingers all covered in assembly lube. We're just gonna snug these down and then I'll take my ratchet. All right. Again, crisscross applesauce in very small bites, okay? Crisscross pattern with these is not run this one all the way down torque, that one down torque, that one down torque. That may work for other things. These things we want to take really small bites. And while we do this, we want to make sure that our concentricity stays where it needs to be. And what you can do for that is actually continually make sure that your cam gear alignment tool will spin. There should be some drag, especially with the assembly lube on it. But if this is so stuck that you can't turn it, it's okay. loosen all the bolts, it'll free up, start over, okay? So we are just gonna keep running down only the big bolts for right now in a crisscross applesauce pattern. Checking our alignment tool, making sure that it still moves very easily. This one's going together very nicely. So this bolt is tightish. That bolt's tightish, that bolt's tightish. So I'm not gonna torque these yet, but they are snug. And our alignment tool, this is perfect. This is exactly how it should be. I'm basically only feeling the drag of the assembly lube. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the small bolts. So we're gonna snug these down again. We'll torque these in a minute. We're just gonna snug them, make sure everything is tight. So what we've done is we have applied the clamp to the seal, and now we're ready to torque them. So now we're ready to torque the bolts. As you can see, not only does this alignment tool spin, but I can take it out, put it all the way in, and see it's butted up against that face in there. But also fun, you can hear it pull a vacuum when you do that. But make sure it goes all the way in and it spins. And do not force it. Ask me how I know. All right, next thing we're gonna do is torque the bolts. So first thing we're gonna do is torque the big ones to 180 inch-pounds and the small ones to 45 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. If you do foot-pounds, you're gonna break stuff. So what I like to do is I'll do the big ones, I'll do the little ones, and then I'll go back and check them. So again, I got my Company23 AVCS socket. I got my torque wrench that reads in inch-pounds. Don't mix this up and do foot-pounds because I told you not to do it. Just don't do it. Inch-pounds. 180. All right. Again, crisscross applesauce, small bites. So I'm just gonna. And after each step, again, check my alignment tool. Make sure nothing is binding. There we go. All right, big ones are torqued. They do most of the work. My alignment tool still spins like butter. I'm gonna back my torque wrench off. I know, I should get a digital one. 45. Small ones. Good. And yes, 45 inch-pounds is not a lot. So now that those are torqued, I always like to double check my big ones. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy. Okay. And as you can see, this is a good reason why we made this AVCS work stand. So I'm not fighting to hold the gear awkwardly. I'm not trying to constrain it. It's just held by these teeth and it works really nice. So now you can see my alignment tool still spins and goes in and bottoms out super nice. So it's bottomed out all the way in my gear and it just goes in nice. So now what we can also do is put this back on our work stand. It's nice to know that whatever you did works, right? Before you put it on the car and maybe you find a problem. We don't want to do that. We want to find the problems here on the bench. So since we assembled this gear in an unlocked position, I can move this back and forth without locking that pin and see that it moves really nice. Actually, this one works really well. I'm actually going to turn this all the way and lock it. So watch this. Ready? Now it's locked. So another bench test that we can do is I'm going to grab my air compressor and we can actually show you which holes that we can shoot air into to actuate this here on the stand. So give me a minute, let me grab my compressor. Let's do that. All right, so we use our alignment tool. The gear is locked here on the stand. And what we want to do is we want to actuate it make sure our seal is sealing, everything works freely. So I have a blowgun here with a long metal tip on it. We'll have a link for this in our how-to instructions on our website. I don't have the pressure up that high. It's like 60 pounds. This doesn't take a lot. But if you look in here, let me clean out that. But we're gonna have a better picture of this on our website. But this is the pin right here that aligns this to the cam gear. If I blast air in this hole to the right of it, it should unlock and it should cycle here on the bench. So we're gonna blast some air in there and we're gonna see what happens. There we go. So this is unlocked and it has cycled, and I cycle it back and it locks. So we can go. So now we've unlocked. We can actually put it in the other hole on the other side of the cam gear alignment pin. That should go back. So this cam gear, this is honestly pretty satisfying after you rebuild these. This cam gear is ready to go back on the car. And take it off here. We can wipe away some of our excess lube, which is always a good idea. Make sure your cam gears are clean before they go around your rubber belt. But this cam gear has been fully, properly rebuilt. It's that easy. So this cam gear is now rebuilt, ready to go back on the car. New seal, cleaned, functions properly. You're not throwing away parts. You're saving money. These things to buy every time you have to rebuild an engine get really expensive. These tools, not that expensive. So if you have any questions on intake cam gear rebuilds, you can hit up our contact form on our website, www.company23.com. You can shoot us a message on the socials. We keep a really close eye on that. Myself, Mark, and our media extraordinaire, Harris. We'll get back to you as quick as we can and hopefully save you some money on your next rebuild, get you back on the road. I love you. Thanks for stopping by. Enjoy the tools. Goodbye.